So hi, I'm Dan. I'm a cloud engineer with Cloudbase Solutions. We care about cloud interoperability. So that's why we turned our attention to Kolla. What is Kolla? So Kolla, it's an OpenStack deployment tool. So when we all started, we had issues with deploying OpenStack. Because it's clumsy, it's huge. OpenStack is huge, so it can break in many places. So Kolla came along. Basically, it's an OpenStack deployment tool which leverages Docker containers with the help of Ansible for automating and deploying the containers themselves. One important thing about Kolla, it's platform and vendor independent. So it's not like Ardelean or Fuel, where one company provides, I don't know, 80 or 90% of the code. So actually, let me just show you the code contributions. So this is Fuel, okay? So you can see that 89% of the code it's vendor committed. Okay, it's from Mirantis. Let's take another project, for example, Packstack, RDO. Okay. Here you can see it's 90%. It's Red Hat, which is not bad, but it's still vendor dependent. And let's check Kolla. Actually, let's check Kolla Ansible, because this is where most of the code goes nowadays. Yeah.
Then, sorry, for the newcomers, can you say a few words about what Stackalytics is?
Yeah, so Stackalytics, it's a place where you can see statistics about various OpenStack projects, which companies commit code to those projects, and also the names of the contributors. Yeah, you can see here. So as you can see, no company commits, I don't know, more than 22% of the code. This is really good because it's community driven. So Kolla, it's a community driven project, OpenStack project. Also, it's under OpenStack Big Tent. This is really cool also. Yeah. Let's get back to this. Also, the delivery method, so RDO, it's package based. You have to install packages one by one. If one package gets updated, you can very well it can very well break your deployment. You also have the Fuel style, the monolithic style of delivery. And with Kolla, it's something in the middle. You have Docker images for each service. So let's say you have Nova API, Nova Compute. They are two Docker images, for Nova API and for Nova Compute. I'll get into that later. So why Kolla, as mentioned? Platform independent, and it's very easy to use. So before coming to Kolla, I was playing around with, I don't know, RDO, Juju, and stuff like that. And you learn them in time, but I found Kolla to be the most easy to get into, because you have, as I said, already built Docker containers where all the services are already installed, and you just have to deploy them with Ansible, which is I will get into Ansible. Yeah, so Ansible, it's an automation tool. You take the Docker images and you basically, with Ansible, you tell on which host do you want those images to reside. You do the network configurations for those containers, stuff like that. Ansible uses roles. So let's say I want to deploy Nova with Neutron. I'll have two roles now. Nova has its own role and Neutron has also its own role. So each service has its own role. Each role it's composed of playbooks and templates, and each playbook is composed of tasks. As you can see, I have here an Ansible playbook which deploys a LAMP server. As you can see, on the first task, I install the latest Apache version. After that, I copy the configurations. Also, tasks, you use tasks with modules. So on the first task, you can see I use yum to install a package. On the second task, I use template to copy a configuration file on the destination. Yeah, and yeah, I start the HTTPD service and stuff like that. Also, a very important thing, Ansible modules also exist for Windows, and there are quite a lot, and they are very stable at this point. This is how we use actually Kolla Ansible with those modules. Docker. Docker is, it's, I guess, the most important thing of Kolla. So every service Kolla uses is in a Docker container. Are you guys who is using Docker in production? Oh, nice. So you know how Docker works. It's basically a container platform. It runs process containers. There are also a concept called machine container, which LXD uses from Canonical, but we are talking today about process containers. It's a heavyweight. It's a lightweight way of running processes. And you use Docker files for image building. Basically, Docker files are image definitions. Also, it uses Linux kernel capabilities. It uses namespaces for, I don't know, like take for example the PID namespace. You have a process running in a container, and you don't want that process to communicate with other processes in other containers. You have C groups. Yeah. So the main idea is to put OpenStack services inside Docker containers with Ansible. This way, you can easily manage a cloud. It's a way desired to be because it's very easy. What we did with Cloudbase is we added the Nova Hyper-V role for Kolla. Basically, this means that you have an OpenStack cloud, and you can use Hyper-V as a hypervisor for that OpenStack cloud. One important note, you can also have KVM nodes as hypervisors and Hyper-V, so you can have a mixed cloud with Hyper-V and KVM nodes. This is very, very nice to have. Yeah, Hyper-V plus OpenStack. As I said, Windows is a first-class citizen in OpenStack. And there's no difference in process handling between KVM and Hyper-V, because the way you think of KVM is just a hypervisor for your OpenStack cloud, okay? And you can look at Hyper-V in the same way. It's just a Hyper-V. It's just a hypervisor, and it works the same from OpenStack point of view. You launch VMs, you create networks for the VMs, you attach volumes. Yeah. We started with Folsom release in 2012, so the Nova Hyper-V and Neutron Hyper-V agents are pretty stable. Also, using Hyper-V with OpenStack, we can leverage some nice Windows features like speed. For example, if you run Windows VMs inside Hyper-V, it's pretty fast. Also, if you run Linux VMs like Ubuntu, actually, a funny fact from my experience, when I started working with Kolla, I had all my VMs, Kolla VMs, inside the VMware on a Windows host, and it was not that good. So at one point, I was forced to transition to a Hyper-V, only Hyper-V environment, and it works way faster with also Windows VMs and Linux VMs. Like I use Ubuntu for deploying OpenStack. I have a demo. I will show you, and it's way faster. So Hyper-V is pretty good. Also, you can leverage Windows failover clustering. It's a way of in which you can cluster VMs completely independent from OpenStack. So let's say you have two Hyper-V hypervisors. One of them goes down. Then all the VMs will migrate to the other Hyper-V, and they will be up. OpenStack won't see any difference. Only that the VMs run on another hypervisor, of course. So let's talk about the deployment workflow, what it means to deploy with Kolla. So the first thing you need is to have some images, some OpenStack images. And there are two ways of doing that. You can pull the already built images from Kolla repository, from Docker Hub. There are many images for every service Kolla deploys. You have, as I said, Nova API, Nova Compute, Nova Neutron server, Neutron API, stuff like that. You can pull them from Docker Hub, from Kolla. You can also put them in your own private repository or registry, or you can build your own images. At some point, we had to build our own images because we needed a mechanism driver for Neutron server called Neutron Hyper-V, and that driver was not in the vanilla images, so we had to build our own images. And it's pretty simple. You use the already built images as a base image, and you just install the packages you need on top of them, and you package them and you ship them. Yeah, so you can pull or build your own images. Also, you can build with source or binary images. Source images, and I find them to be more stable than the binary ones. Source images are, when you build one with source, all the packages inside of it are built from the source code. And with binary, for example, Ubuntu, it just builds the image with apt packages, from apt. As I said, I found the source ones to be more stable. And you do some configurations. I'll show you in the demo, and you just deploy Ansible. As I said, every service, the services are deployed with roles. Nova has its own role, Nova Hyper-V has its own role, but we plan to merge it in the Nova role. Neutron has its own role, I don't know, Cinder. So let me show you. I think I can close this.
Can you make it long bigger?
Yeah. Just tell me when. Okay. Okay, so I took the liberty and I already pulled the images. I just run docker pull and it just pulls the images you can see here. So I have many images right here. Where you control what images you want to deploy, it's found in Etsy. So this is a nice feature about Kolla. It's, I don't know, 90% of the settings you want to do to the cloud, you can set them in one file, which is Etsy Kolla globals.yaml. Here, I'm going to show you where you can... Is it okay like this? Ah. Better? Okay. Here I say what Kolla-based distro I want. So I want Ubuntu. You can choose between CentOS, Oracle Linux, and Ubuntu. I want the source type. Also, I want OpenStack release for. This means that I want to pull Okata. 3 means Newton, and you can go back by release like that. Node custom config. Here in etc Kolla config, you will get the configurations for the container. I'm going to show you that later. Also, I use I use high availability, so I have an IP, a virtual address, for all the services. I just want to show you. Yeah, here you do networking configurations, like which interface you want to be the one Neutron uses for the gateway. You're gonna have a storage interface for storage traffic. Yeah, so here's the part I wanted to get to. Here you enable services, OpenStack services. So let's say I want to enable Ceph. I do. This is not Vim. I do this, and Kolla will automatically, when I run Docker deploy, it will install Ceph. But I also have to do a Docker Kolla pull before, so it can pull the Ceph image from Docker Hub or whatever. So this is the main configuration file for Kolla. It's really simple actually, because you have one file, you configure networking, what services you want to have, yeah, stuff like that. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so I saved it. Okay, so I already have the images. I already have the configuration file already configured. I just have to do a Docker deploy. So, yeah, let's do it again. So, as you can see, Kolla Ansible deploy. One important thing, you have an inventory file for Ansible. Ansible works with nodes, which you define in the inventory file. Let me just show you the inventory file. So here, as you can see, I can define a control host, which is localhost in my case. Here I can put an IP or a resolvable host name. I can put a network node for Neutron. I can put a compute node, storage node, and here I have groups. Like I want Grafana to go on the monitoring node. I want CollectD to go to my compute nodes. I want to go to. Here I have defined my Hyper-V. This is the IP. This is the configuration. It uses WinRM because we don't have SSH on Windows right now. Usable with Ansible, I mean. I have the Ansible port, stuff like this. So here I have all my services, OpenStack services, running on my local host on this node. And I have one compute node, which is the Hyper-V one, on which I'm going to deploy Nova agent, Neutron agent, and also FreeRDP for Horizon connection to the VM. So Kolla Ansible deploy. I tell which inventory file to take. So now it does all the setup it needs. It contacts the nodes. Okay. I'm gonna let this run. And I'm going to go back to my presentation. Actually, let me show you how a role looks. The demo gods are not merciful today. For some reason, it just died. I'm sorry for that. Yeah, I will show it in the browser. So here's the Kolla project. Most of the code goes in the Ansible directory. And here I have the roles. So as you can see, here the services that Kolla deploys, each has a role. Let's, for example, go into the Nova one. Here I have templates. Templates are the configuration files your services will have. So you have some templates defined. Let's take, for example, Nova config. We all know that. So as you can see, it has all the debug, logdir, I don't know, new transaction, VNC. And those are variables that Ansible will set at deploy time. So all the configurations files go with templates. This is how we can use, sorry, we can use the same configuration files for Nova KVM and for Nova Hyper-V, because Nova Hyper-V, it's just like Nova KVM, but running on Windows hosts. So we need the same variables, like the API addresses, the same configuration files, basically. Okay. And I have the tasks, which do the heavy lifting. I have the deploy playbook, which enables Nova. Let me just check where it is. Yeah, it says some values. It copies the configurations files in the place that it needs. It starts the service, stuff like that. Okay. Okay. So it should not take long. I had the second demo already prepared with the environment already deployed, but for some reason I cannot SSH into that machine. I don't know. I will just. Okay, so I don't have to worry about it. So right now it got to the Nova side of things. It's discovering Nova hosts, copying configurations over. After that, I'll just have to run another Kolla script, which basically does the OpenRC file and stuff like that. After this, it will be deployed. And this does not take long. I mean, on the fast machine, it can take 15 minutes. On my laptop, took 15 minutes. This deployment, it's on a bit slower server, but it should be fine. Okay. Yeah. So what we'll get in the end, containers, containers, containers. Those are the running containers at the end of an OpenStack deployment. You can see the repository, though the images were taken from Cloudbase. It's their Ubuntu images, the version. Those are the Newton versions because are 3. And yeah, the uptime and stuff like that. So post-deployment and operations. As I said, you have a single file for configuring how the deployment will look like, and you also have in etc Kolla for each service you have the running configurations file. So let's say I want to tune Neutron. I'll just go in etc Kolla Neutron, and I will edit, let's say, neutron.conf. I want to set debug equal true. I'll go there, I will edit it, and then I'll just have to restart the container. It's that easy. You don't have to, dig for it, for the process or stuff like that. You just have to restart the container, and its configuration file will, I did nothing. We'll pick that up and we'll run with that. So it's very, very easy to, this is why I find it very easy to manage the cloud, because I can see with the Docker PS, I can see all the services that are running on my machine, and which one is down, which one is running, which one is restarting. If it keeps restart, that's a problem with it. So it's very easy for me as a cloud administrator to see what goes on. Also, you have a special container for logging. It's Kolla uses FluentD for aggregating all the logs. You can just log into that container and look at all the services logs. Yeah. One important fact is that when you're talking about networking, because you're running Docker containers, it's about Docker networking. So Kolla, if you deploy it by default, it uses host networking, Docker host networking for containers. It's not using the default Docker approach with virtual bridges, and you get an IP for containers from that bridge. No, it actually uses the IP of the host, and each service has its own port from the host. So, for example, if you do a Docker port for a particular container, you won't see any port because it does have not any port allocated because it's using a host port. Also, you have Kolla tools. This is really nice because, okay, you deployed the containers. Let's take, for example, the development phase. When you do development, you tear down your environment, you put it back up, again, you tear it down. You have the cleanup scripts. There's a script called cleanup containers, in which it kills all the containers, but it keeps all the OVS or the host networking stuff like bridges on the host machine, and it kills only the containers. After that, you can just redeploy the containers. Also, you have the pre-checks script where it checks if all the ports for the APIs are available, or the packages are installed, the packages you need. Also, you have a post-deploy script in which it creates the OpenRC file for your cloud, for other users. Also, you have a script that automatically generates a list of passwords for you before you deploy the environment. Also, the documentation right now, it's not that great. I mean, there are lots of best practices for Kolla which are not documented. One of them, let's say, for example, I want only to reconfigure or redeploy the Cinder side, the Cinder services, because I changed something in the code. You can run, and this is an Ansible trick, you can just run Kolla, reconfigure, -- tags Cinder, and you'll just go over the Cinder services and won't touch other services. Yeah. Also, if you're running Kolla and you don't find documentation for what you need, but you know how to do it, please document that and send the commits for that, because it's really, really important for the community to have good documentation. So let's talk about a container right now, the atom of this deployment. 5 minutes, okay. Here you can inspect each container. You can see networking settings, container environment variables, state, volumes, mounts, and right here I can see a mount. This is on the on the Linux host. I can see that etc Kolla Nova Compute. It's attached to my container. Here's the container in var_lib Kolla configuration files. Basically, for the Nova Compute service I'm running inside the container, here is where I find the configurations files from it, which are read-only because are read from here. So as I said before, if I want to set debug true for this service, I'll just have to edit this, restart the container, and this will become this because it's a mount. It's the same thing, and it's read-only from the container. Same for the logs. Here is where the container puts the logs. The fluentd container will pick it up and will show you the logs. Also important things are upgrades. Kolla supports upgrades. You can upgrade between major releases or minor releases versions with Kolla Ansible. Basically, what it does is, let's say you have Newton images, you can just go to the etc Kolla global.yaml, you edit the OpenStack release, as I did here. I had the one release, and I want this one. I change this to this. I just do Kolla Ansible upgrade. And what it does, Kolla will tear down the 1.00 images, and we'll put the new images with 1.10. It's that simple. Few notes. Kolla, it's not Magnum. With Kolla, you deploy OpenStack in containers. With Magnum, you manage containers with OpenStack. You can have Magnum with Kolla. What I do with Magnum is oftentimes I deploy Kubernetes with Magnum in a Kolla deployment. Since Okata release, Kolla diverged into another project called called Kolla Ansible, which is a standalone project. Most of the code nowadays goes in Kolla Ansible. Kolla is just the code for the management of Kolla, and Kolla Ansible it's where everything goes nowadays, because they are where the roles are. It was founded during Kilo release, so it's pretty mature. Portability. You can use the already built images with other automation tools, such like Puppet or Chef. Images. Kolla builds images for Big Tent. Not all Big Tent services are present in Kolla. They are working on it, bringing services with every release. But not only, Kolla also has images for Ceph, for fluentd. And one important note is that the next evolution in Kolla, in the Kolla process, is Kolla Kubernetes. It's still in dev phase, so it's not production ready. Basically, what this means is that you'll be able to run OpenStack clouds deployed with Kubernetes. This resolves issues like high availability, load balancing, stuff they are not that easy with OpenStack. Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry that the demo did not work.
So thank you very much, Dan. So unfortunately, we really ran out of time for questions. I would also encourage. Well, I can see on this screen that the demo actually ran and without errors. You can believe me. Why would I lie about it? So I encourage you again to find Dan on the corridor and start bugging him to answer your questions regarding the Kolla project. Thank you again.